Councillor Danch moved that council rise without report from in camera. Questions? All in favor? Carried. At this time, if you're able, please rise for our national anthem, followed by our land acknowledgement.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
The Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Hattaway-Wendourok, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
We have two proclamations this evening. First proclamation is the Niagara Community Foundation. May 2025 is Leave a Legacy Month. If I could have Councillors Aquilina and Beauregard move. Now therefore, I, Mayor William C. Steele, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Leave a Legacy Month and encourage all residents to consider how they can leave a meaningful gift in their will. By taking this step, we can ensure a stronger, more vibrant, and more generous Niagara for generations to come. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. Our second is Emergency Preparedness Week, May 4th to 10th of 2025. If I could have Councillors Bagu and Bruno move. Now, therefore, I, Mayor William C. Steele, do hereby proclaim May 4th to 10th, 2025 as Emergency Preparedness Week in the City of Port Colborne. And I urge all citizens to make a plan, prepare an emergency kit, and know what to do so that they can and their families can be better prepared for any emergency. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. We have a number of presentations this evening. I'll go to the So this evening we have our grant presentations, which we do twice a year for our community. And this is the first allocation for 2025. If I could ask Councillors Hoyle, Aquilina, and Chair Kenny to come up. And Brenda Hames is unavailable this evening. So the Grant Allocation Committee meets twice a year to review applications for community grants. The grant program started in 2001 with proceeds from the sale of Port Colborne Hydro to Canadian Niagara Power. As I said, there are 5 members of our committee. At this time, if I could have Chair, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. Our committee allocates funding to local nonprofit groups and organizations based on council-approved criteria. The deadline for applications in the first round of 2024 was January the 30th. The committee met in February to discuss the merits of the applications and to decide which applicants will receive all or part of their funding request. We wish we could grant funding to everyone who applies, but of course this is impossible. And for this first round, grants are allocated to 5 community groups and organizations. We're pleased to present checks to representatives of the groups this evening. Now I call upon our chair, B. Kenny, to make the first presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would Erica Horton please come forward? Not here? Just to say how ironic, one of the famous hockey players, Tim Horton, and here's a Horton coming to get a check for the girls.
Yes, so
And Erica couldn't be here, so I just wanted to let everyone know that Erica is the vice president.
President.
President, she says
Voted
vice,
in.
look. Oh, she got the president's job.
She's our president
Good for
now,
her,
yeah.
yeah, that's great. Of the Waves Girl Minor Hockey. Minor hockey is important to me as adult because I was on the first girls hockey team in Port Colborne. Actually, almost Niagara. I think we beat out most girls skatings, and my father was a very strong advocate for women's hockey. So, anyways, you're dear to my heart for that reason. But their mission is to catch every wave of opportunity, to empower girls and women through hockey, and to create a tidal force of skill and camaraderie. So I'm happy to present this evening a check for $5,369 to help pay for professional skills training for these players. The funding will help ensure all WAVE players from under 7 to under 15 have access to additional skill development as part of their registration by providing additional opportunities for players to learn and to grow, and to help them reach their potential on and off the ice. I know the amount of work your organization of volunteers and parents dedicates to our young players, and I know how important skills development is to keep your players keen and involved in the sport that they will have with them forever. You provide a positive and enriching experience for girls in hockey, fostering their skills and their confidence and the love of the game. Most important, the love of the game. So congratulations from all.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I feel like you said it all, but I'll never turn down an opportunity to advocate for girls in sport. So on behalf of the Port Colborne Girls Hockey Association, we're honored to accept this generous grant from the City of Port Colborne. Our founder is Tim Hoyle, one of our counselors too, so shout out to Tim. This support strengthens our mission to develop skilled, confident, and passionate female hockey players. And more than that, it's an investment in our entire community. The funding is going towards professional skating and skill development for our players next season by offering inclusive development at no cost to families. So this is above and beyond regular practices. It's included where a lot of times families pay for that out of pocket. And so what we would see was those girls that had those extra funds and those extra opportunities had a better chance of staying in the sport. So by including that in our membership, it gives everybody a chance to learn to play. And when girls have those opportunities, they're more apt to stay in the sport as well. And by partnering with respected local coaches, we're not only helping our athletes grow, we're also supporting small businesses and putting funds back into our city. Last season, we had Nancy Gruhl provide our power skating, and we also had Chris Hino from HHP Hockey. This grant helps us create a sustainable program with a lot of the money going back to the city for the cost of the ice as well. And the results of us providing this have spoken for themselves. Since launching our inclusive development programs, our membership has grown 400% in the past 2 seasons. When we provide the right support, girls do show up to play and they will stay. And the impact of sports goes far beyond the rink. Girls who participate in sports build confidence, resilience, teamwork, and leadership skills that stay with them throughout their lives. Programs like ours not only help retain girls in hockey, but also set them up for success in school, in careers, in their communities, and there's lots of statistics to show that. So thank you again to the city. This grant isn't just financial support, it's a shared belief in the power of sport to transform lives and strengthen communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll try to shorten that up next time. Thank you.
We'll call you back up for a photo. We'll do a photo. We'll call you back.
Oh, I did that last year.
Yeah, take the check.
Thank you. The next group is the Optimist, and I see a group of them here. I think you should all come up. I do. Come on up. Don't be afraid. So this is only a small part of the Optimist Club, but works very hard to stay optimistic, to build stronger connections in the community, to foster youth. They are a committed and passionate group of volunteers. The purpose of the Optimist Club is to develop an optimistic philosophy of life and to promote an active interest in good government, civic affairs, and to respect law, to promote patriotism, and to work for the international accord and friendship among people, to aid and encourage the development of youth, in belief of giving of oneself to help others will advance the well-being of humankind, the community, and the world. The Port Colborne Optimists were chartered in 1986, and they've been very busy ever since. The biggest event in the Port Colborne Optimist Canada is the annual Canada Day celebration at H.H. Knoll Park, Lakeview Park, too. Each year, thousands of visitors join at the bandshell and listen to live music, children's entertainers, food trucks, and dozens of other craft vendors from around the region. It is a community-spirited day which we celebrate all the reasons we are proud to be Canadian. 3 years ago, the Optimist Club took over the annual Fishing Kids Derby at Father's Day, a tradition started by the Conservation Club many years ago. Hundreds of children aged from 3 to 13 join their parents and guardians for a fun day at Father's Day morning of catch and release fishing. Everyone gets a bucket and some worms, and everyone who catches a fish takes home a prize donated by our incredible generous sponsors. On behalf of City Council's Allocation Committee, I'm happy to present a check to you today of $4,000 to help you and your volunteers present the Canada Day Community Celebration and the Father's Day Kids Fishing Derby. And thank you for doing a great job for the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Can you say something?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mine will be real short. We can't do this without you. So we are truly grateful to the City of Port Colborne for the grant to allow us to continue to do the Canada Day celebrations at the park, as well as taking over the fishing derby on Father's Day for the kids. We're hoping to make that grow every year, add a few more things to it to make it even better and better. I think our clubhouse right now is full of prizes for the fishing derby, so the kids will not go home empty-handed. That's what we're about as the kids of Port Colborne. So we truly, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for this grant. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Bea and Jeanette. And I'll ask Councillor Aquilina to come forward and make the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will Scott Wolf from Friends of Port Colborne Lighthouse please join me?
He's got his check.
Oh. Thanks, Scott. Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouse have ferried more than 3,000 passengers out to the lighthouse on Canal Days weekend since 2013. The inner or main light on the east end of the breakwall was constructed in 1903. A 42-foot square white tower made of reinforced concrete was visible for 12 miles. The outer light, or foghorn lighthouse, was erected on the south end of the breakwall extension in 1928. It was the loudest fog signal on the canal side of the Great Lakes. Both lighthouses were deemed surplus by the Canadian federal government and decommissioned in 2010. Friends of the Lighthouse was founded by the late Erno Rossi, a retired teacher and local historian, in 2012. Scott, on behalf of the city and the Grant Allocation Committee, I am pleased to present to you a check of $3,600 to help you secure a waterless composting toilet for volunteers and visitors to the break wall. Congratulations.
One quick question. Put your hand up if you have been out to the lighthouse. Okay, we're going to change that. And hopefully before Canal Days. So that's one of my priorities, is to get all of you out and city staff. So on behalf of the Friends of the Colborne Lighthouse, this is huge. Thank you very much. And like it says, we're actually going to install an environmentally friendly washroom out there, because you never know if in the middle of tours you can have a micro thunderstorm show up and you might have people out there for several hours until it passes by. You could have a boat break down, all kinds of things. So it's only prudent to get a decent washroom facility out there. The Friends of the Colborne Lighthouse, we started out as basically like-minded citizens when we found out the lighthouses were deemed surplus. Erno Rossi spearheaded it, and we've been picking up. It's been a community involvement right from the get-go. Go back about 10 years ago, the Lions Club and Bell Marine went halfers and bought us 100 life jackets, so that way we could fit everybody properly. And then back at that time, Pocomar, Port Colborne Marine Auxiliary Rescue, for 2 to 3 years actually did the tours, transported the people from the marina to the lighthouse. But once we became search and rescue only, then the group had to purchase, we've got 2 pontoon boats. So that's another challenge, keeping them fit, and we try to get 10 to 12 people out at a time. Also this year, both of those vessels are now commercial, so we're elevating the safety element of that. So it's an ongoing operation, but again, this year I'd like to get every one of you out there, because this group is really passionate, and unless you've been out there to experience the lighthouse and see the views, it's hard to grasp the passion. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. We'll call you up for a picture in front. Okay? We'll call you up for a picture. Thanks, Councillor Aquilina, and thank you, Scott. And would Councillor Hoyle come forward for the next presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could Deborah Burden from the Port Colborne Feline Initiative come forward, join me? Established in June 2009, Port Colborne Feline Initiative is a volunteer-based charity which addresses the many issues of feral and household cats in Port Colborne. Unhoused. The PCFI volunteers provide humane and fiscally responsible resources, including trap, neuter, vaccinate, return for free roaming unknown cats. They also raise money at annual events to help pet owners by subsidizing spay and neuter operations for their cats. I'm pleased to present you with a check for $4,335, which will cover the TNVR for 10 cats, 5 male, 5 female, and for the SNAP assistance program for another 10 cats of 5 male and 5 female.
On behalf of PCFI, we'd like to thank you for this very generous gift. We truly appreciate it, and we know that it will help greatly with the needs of these feral animals. Thank you.
We'll call you up for a picture.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah, and thanks, Councillor Hoyle. At this time, can I have Christine Bowers come forward? Good evening. Christine is the Youth and Family Support Coordinator of Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet. Community Living Port Colborne Wainfleet was organized by a group of parents and incorporated in 1962, the year I was born. Their goal was to provide quality supports and services to people identified as having an intellectual developmental disability and their families. Community Living supports people as they develop their capacity to live, learn, work, and participate in all aspects of living within our community. The goal now, as then, is to empower people to live quality lives, to reach their full potential, and be active members of our community. Christine, I'm pleased to present you with a $3,000 check on behalf of the city's grant committee to fund quality of life programming for youth and young adults, including cooking and meal preparation, driver instruction and training, job search skills, and the grant will also help with costs of transportation, staffing, and training materials. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Am I going to say anything? On behalf of Community Living?
On behalf of Community Living, thank you so very much. This is going to help us out quite a bit.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Call you up for a photo. Okay, thanks. So we're going to call all the groups up for a photo up at the front in a second, but I'd just like to thank everyone and congratulate all of you, specifically for all the hard work that you do within our community and with Community Living across both Port Colborne and Wainfleet. The Grant Allocation Committee meets again this summer, and the deadline for the second allocation of grants is June 30th. You do not have to wait until June. You can apply now. The criteria for eligibility and the application form are on the city's website, cityofportcolborne.ca. So we're going to do our photograph now. So if we could have our groups come up. Thank you. Okay, so there are no delegations this evening. So on to the mayor's report. As well, I'll do the take any questions with regards to my report and for the regional council, as regional councilor again is not here due to his leave of absence. So today is the 55th annual Earth Day. The day was founded on April the 22nd, 1970, to bring worldwide awareness and concern for the environment and the links between pollution and public health. We've learned a lot in the last 55 years about how our actions impact our world and its resources. We act locally and think globally. We reduce, reuse, and recycle. We compost organics, we use unleaded gas, unleaded paint, and hundreds of other earth-safe products, but we still have lots of work to do. Climate change activities encompass a wide range of actions aimed at mitigating the impacts of global warming, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adapting to changing climate conditions, and promoting sustainable practices. Small things make a big difference. The Optimist and other local clubs do roadside cleanups to mark Earth Day. Last week, in partnership with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and Sassafras Farms, the city gave away 500 trees and 100 seed packs last Thursday in our market square. Kudos to our events team for presenting a full day of fun Easter activities, including an Easter egg hunt at the Valet Center. It was a thrill for all of us to welcome the Easter Bunny, who arrived in Port Colborne on the deck of the J.W. Cooper pilot boat. Thanks to Captain Craig Workman and his crew for delivering Mr. Cottontail safely Saturday morning via the Welland Canal. We joined communities across Ontario in recognizing Doctors' Day on May the 1st, a day to express our gratitude to physicians for their compassionate care, dedication, and continued commitment to improving the health of people in our community. Here in Niagara, more than 600 physicians across a wide range of specialties are transforming care every day, collaborating with healthcare teams, embracing innovation, and going above and beyond for their patients. We especially thank those who have retired this past year for their years of service, and we warmly welcome the newest physicians to our region. We are proud to raise the Doctors' Day flag to recognize May 1 as Doctors' Day and express our sincere appreciation to all physicians for their extraordinary work in shaping a healthier Niagara. In addition to the flag, the cupola atop City Hall will be illuminated blue to mark the day. May 1st is the first day of Community Living Month. Get the correlation. We've had the Optimists including in one of these days, and now the Community Living, who both received funds this evening. Community Living Month is a province-wide annual awareness campaign to recognize the accomplishments of the community living movement. We'll raise the flag next week for Community Living Port Colborne-Wainfleet, one of 124 associations across Ontario, to show why authentic inclusion matters for people who have an intellectual disability and their families. Councils of Port Colborne and Wainfleet are proud of your work, Community Living, for making our communities places where everyone belongs. May 1st marks the opening of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum, celebrating 50 years of preserving our local heritage. Since opening in 1975, dedicated members of the community, volunteers, local business, staff, and visitors have worked together to collect and share the history of Port Colborne. In the last 50 years, the museum's collection has grown to include more than 26,000 donated artifacts. The grounds have expanded to include a heritage village, marine park, Arabella's Tea Room, the Captain J.W. Sharp, the Heritage Resource Center, the L.R. Wilson Research Archives, and the Roselawn Center. The first Canal Days Festival was held in the museum grounds before it grew to become the city's signature multi-venue festival, attended by thousands every year on Civic Weekend in August. Working with local graphic designer Megan Chamberlain, the museum's community engagement coordinator, created a beautiful 50th anniversary logo, which is right here. That's what it looks like. Show that to our guy on TV. It's actually really cool. I like that. To honor its legacy, the museum is releasing a series of monthly videos highlighting the stories behind its buildings and grounds. The first video you can watch is on YouTube, and it features board member Terry Huffman detailing the history of the Williams House, built in 1861 and donated to the city by Arabella Williams. If you've been to Arabella's Tea Room, and I'm pretty sure most everyone has in Port Colborne, if you haven't, this will be your year. There is a quilt on the wall embroidered with all the signatures of the founding members of the Museum Auxiliary, and I'm told my mother's signature is on there, with so many other community spirit ladies who developed the Edwardian Tea Room experience. Just to name a few: Ethel Burrell, Ruby Conway, Bonnie Johnson, Merle Kennedy, Jean Leach. We ask you to check it out when in the tea room and when it opens, and its annual pie socials on Sunday, May the 25th. Arabella's Tea Room opened for business July 1st, 1978, 3 years after the museum opened. Lieutenant Governor Pauline McGibbon was in Port Colborne to cut the opening ribbon. Every year is a great year at our museum, but this 50th year promises to be exceptional. Council is extremely proud of the passionate and dedicated efforts of Stephanie Powell-Baswick, our Director of Museum and Culture, Michelle Mason, Museum Curator, Tammy Nail, Assistant Curator, Dr. Michelle Vosberg, Archivist, and their team of programmers, assistants, and coordinators. Well done, all of you. Just a reminder, the museum opens May 1st. It will be open daily from noon to 5, and admission is free. Finally, May 1st is the day we celebrate our volunteers, more than 250 of you at our Volunteer Appreciation Banquet at the Italian Hall. We're also grateful for our volunteers who return every year for seasonal events and who serve weekly and monthly on civic committees. We now have 3 generations of volunteers, grandparents, parents, and grandchildren from several local families who help us make so many good things happen within our city. I've said it before, Port Colborne has the best volunteers. And we hope that you continue to support, serve, and inspire, which is a testament to your love and passion for your hometown. It'll be great to see you all next week. We'll present years of service pins, 5-year, 10, 20, and I believe we do have a 50-year pin going out for a few dedicated people. We have a Battle of Atlantic ceremony on May the 4th. The longest, largest, and most complex battle of the Second World War was known as the Battle of the Atlantic. It lasted 5 years, 8 months, and 5 days. Canada lost 2,000 sailors from the Royal Canadian Navy, 1,600 merchant marines, and 752 airmen from the Royal Canadian Air Force. The Welland Canal and St. Lawrence Seaway have direct ties to the Battle of the Atlantic, as so many of the merchant ships which sailed through these locks came from the Great Lakes. When called upon by their country, these sailors risked their lives on treacherous convoys, transporting essential supplies and ammunition across the Atlantic to the front lines. In commemoration of the 80th anniversary and in honor of the brave souls who were lost, the Royal Canadian Naval Association Niagara will hold a memorial service on Sunday, May the 4th at the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 56, right here in Port Colborne. In recognition of Navy Week, the white ensign will be raised in King George Memorial Park and along the canal on West Street from Monday, April 28th to Monday, May the 5th. Let us come together to remember our history and honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice. We also extend our deepest gratitude to those who continue to serve in the Canadian Armed Forces today for their courage and sacrifice. That concludes my report. Any questions, council, or any questions for the region? I can take those. Okay. So on to the consent agenda. Councillor Hoyle has lifted item 13.4D, so that'll become item 14.5. Councillor Bruno has pulled item 13.3. It will be considered as item 14.6. And those are the only 2 items that were pulled any further. So if I could have Councillors Bodner and Hoyle move that council hereby approves the listed consent items on April the 22nd, 2025 council agenda, that the consent items be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so on to item 14.1. Animal Control Services, Animal Shelter Enhanced Services 2025-76. Ms. Hanson is here. If you want to come up to the podium, Ms. Hanson's going to give us an overview of this, and then I'll put it on the floor for discussion. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to give you a slight overview before the slide presentation because I have the Welland District Niagara SPCA and Humane Society here to do the presentation for the PowerPoint. But the animal shelter located at 1080 Elm Street is a shelter that we have been adding enhancements to, such as over the years we've put a new parking lot, paved it, put a new shed, new roof, windows. We cleaned up the lot that was adjacent that had debris and garbage in it, fenced it in, and now it's the meet and greet playground, allowing the animals to get the zoomies out and run around and you can greet them there. So the whole family can meet the dogs and they can get acclimatized to everything instead of just being in a little run. But the enhanced services we're going to talk about tonight is for volunteers and for the public to be able to access the animal shelter with extended hours, basically normal business hours, as well as get the animals out of the enclosure and get them to an area where they can meet and greet people in a fashion without anxiety. So I'm going to call up Tammy, Amelia, and Nina from the Niagara SPCA, and I'm going to have them do the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know where to click. Okay. I think it's this one.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm Tammy Gabry. I am the Animal Care Manager for the Niagara SPCA. I've been with the organization for 30 years now. Amelia Canto is our new CEO with the organization. So we're here to present the enhanced service proposal that we've put together. So by increasing the shelter operating hours, we can expand our capacity for care for the animals in shelter. This increases the community's access to the shelter to come see the animals. It increases the enrichment that we can provide to them by giving our volunteers more opportunity to come get the animals out for walks, socialization, and just some exercise because they're cooped up so long when in the shelter right now. We did give some numbers here, so you can see the trends from 2018. We went pre-COVID to after COVID and where we sit. We're still seeing a high number of animals come into our care. We have our stray dog intakes, stray cat intakes, our surrender dogs, so those are people relinquishing their pets to us, and relinquishment of cats into care. As you can see, those numbers have increased for us and what we're having in shelter in our care. And then we've done our adoptions. So these are adoptions at our Port Colborne shelter, which are great, but we'd like to be able to increase those numbers by having more access for the public to come in and see the animals, return to owners, that people have more opportunity to come and claim their pets if we have those extended hours. So those are just some numbers to give you, showcasing what we've done. This talks about the shelter care standard. So this is where we our go-to for how we can provide the best care for them while they're in shelter with us. We know that positive social interaction outside, how the effect that it has on the animals. For our puppies and our kittens, the socialization that it provides for them by having our volunteers be able to come in, longer availability for that. And it's a crucial component for stress reduction for them while they're in shelter, because shelter life is stressful. So we want to do whatever we can to reduce that stress. Our current operating hours they're limited to what we can do because we are set to those scheduled hours of operation. So this results in more stress, anxiety, potential health issues from being confined for longer periods of time. The decreases of chances of adoption. If we have hours that are not easily accessible for the public, it can reduce those. And extended results, higher resource costs. The longer they're in our care, the more that they, ultimately we're caring for them. So you have daily costs of animal care, providing medical costs, feeding, all those normal things that we do on a daily basis. We have had, members of the public that have had some frustrations because we close at 2 o'clock. It's very hard for people in the community to get there for 2 p.m. in the afternoon through the week. Saturdays is our longest day, so we see the highest number of people coming through on a Saturday. But it means their animals are spending more time in their kennels instead of being out with volunteers that we have. Our volunteer group has grown. We actually have one of our volunteers here in the audience tonight, and we are expanding on that to get more and more volunteers in, either cat cuddlers. We have a lady who comes in and reads to the dogs while they're sitting in their kennels, and then our amazing volunteers groups that get them out, walking, socializing, dog play groups. So right now that's limited on what they're able to do. So currently, we are, this is what we're proposing for what we would like to see. Right now, we're closed on Mondays, so there is no public access to the shelter on Mondays. Tuesday to Friday, public can only access the shelter from 10 to 2 p.m. And Saturdays, we are there 10 to 4 p.m. So that is our longest operating day. Sundays, we are closed. That is our big day for cleaning and deep cleaning and that kind of stuff. What we'd like to see is to be open until at least 4 p.m. Our staff do arrive at 8 a.m., so they get their cleaning and their feeding going. But then they open for the public to come in, and by extending those hours, we can increase all those other things that we talked about. Some of these photos are animals that are in shelter right now, so we had to add those. And then I'm going to turn this over to Amelia.
Okay, right there. Okay, so as Tammy was saying, more residents will be able to visit the shelter with the longer hours, and they'll be able to view the animals, and that will expedite the adoptions, which we want to do, reduce the length of stay in the shelter. We also want to increase the opportunity to expand our volunteer base. We have about 200, I think, in total right now, between all of our shelters and at our Cat Adoption Center, which is pretty incredible. But we always need more volunteers, and there's so many benefits to having them involved. We also would like more consistent socialization and be able to provide more exercise for the animals, which helps reduce their stress. So there are financial implications. I wanted to go over those with you. So the additional staffing will be required, but we don't need to hire additional people. So we'll be just working longer hours. The additional hours would be added to the current contingent. So in year one, the incremental change would be $14,197, and you can see year two and year three, $24,280 and $24,905 in addition to the existing contracted fees. These funds would be, have already been committed. The prior funds, I should say, would be added to the ones that are previously committed. In terms of the timeline, we were hoping for this to start in May of 2025, so next month, before our busy spring and summer season begins. So in conclusion, we believe that the proposed increased operating hours will benefit the community as well as our animals. The funding will make sure that our shelter operates more efficiently and humanely. And we're also looking for better outcomes for our animals and increased satisfaction from our community members. So that's our presentation. We're ready to take questions.
Okay, questions to the presenters. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. I did, you had financial, like year 1, 2, and 3 up there, but it differed from so like the staff report was, each year was about $21,000, but then this report was different, so I just wanted to know the difference between.
There was an adjustment that we did go through. So because we're looking at starting in May, that's only 8 months that we have to increase the staffing. So that made that change. I'm not sure where. Yeah.
If you look at the front page of the report under the recommendation, the $24,000 and $24,900 is for years 2 and 3. But because the contract goes from May to December for 1 year, and then it goes from January to April to finish off the year. Because this isn't a whole calendar year, our contract runs May to December basically, and then January to April for 1 year. So the actual pricing for the first one is the 14 because you're only needing the May to December, and the rest are for the full years, but you have to add the amount from the previous year. So if you look at the recommendation, it's $24,000.
Yeah, I was just talking about, there was a something that was sent to you, the proposed enhanced services, and those are quite like few $1,000 difference. That's all it was.
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor, to the councillor, I think with the presentation came in at a different time as the report, but if you look at the contract and the recommendation match, and I think what bylaw and the team up there is trying to say is there is they did one calculation based on what a normal annual year is, and then when they prorated it based on a different calendar year because it's from now for a year and then from now for a year. So that's why the numbers didn't line up. It caught me too, but they came in at separate times and it was, but it will work out.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, thank you very much for your presentation. I've been to a lot of your shelters. We've had pets before. Actually, all our pets have all been abandoned pets, and I thank you for the great group work you're doing. You consider yourself a nonprofit group by your website. I did go on your website a couple of days ago, but there's no financial statement. Is there a reason why you don't post a financial statement?
Well, I believe it was because of John Greer passing away last year. So he passed away in January of 2024. There was no one taking over for that role until July, and then there's an interim individual. I just started in January. So I think we're just a little bit off cycle in terms of our annual reports, but we will be updating that in the coming year.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do agree with the volunteers are needed. And I have a question for staff, Mr. Mayor, but.
Once it's on the table, this is just the presenters.
Okay. I'm great, thank you.
Good. Any further questions? Thank you. Yeah, you can stay. So this time, if I could have Councilors Danch and Elliott move the Community Safety Enforcement Department Report 2025-76 be received. The council approved providing enhanced animal control services at the Port Colborne Animal Shelter. That the funding associated with the enhanced services in the amount of $14,197 for the remainder of 2025 be approved, and that $24,280 and $24,905 for years 2 and 3 of the contract, respectively, be allocated into the annual budget process to ensure continued service. Questions? Councillor Baggio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you to, I guess, share somebody from finance. Where do we expect the first year monies to come from?
Mr. Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor. When we looked at the budget, we think we're ahead on a couple items. So we do view in aggregate that we're going to have a balanced budget still, and we can work this in. So when I say we're ahead in a couple items, I look at where we budgeted for interest and where we have an allocation for things like tax write-offs, and that we are looking that that's probably going to be lower than what we originally budgeted, because MPAC, for example, hasn't come forward with coming out with the new assessment model that we've been preparing for. So I do think that this will be able to be aggregated in. There's no budget impact. We'll still have a balanced budget. It came forward to you today not through normal budget, simply because we had this opportunity to do enhancement of service. And as council knows, when there is a change in service levels, we bring that back to council to consider.
Councillor?
Thank you. Usually I know the director of finance has a secret drawer in his desk. We've talked about that when you first got your job, I think, as director of finance. And I have no problem doing it for this year, but for year 2 and 3, Mr. Mayor, I would like to see it be deferred to staff to go to budget, like it should, rather than come in through 4 months into the year proving something for the next 3 years.
So yeah, as it states here, it will come into the annual budget process, so it will be there. That's fine. Yep, perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A worthwhile cause. Great job, you two. I was looking at how on an hourly basis you calculated the increase, although I just used a calendar year, not the split year actually, but 52 weeks times 12 was the hours. So I guess my concern is there, other than this cost, is there cost to your department or any other costs associated with them increasing the hours?
Ms. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno, no, there's no other additional costs because we have an actual contract that we have incorporating all the other costs. This is just enhancing the hours to open up the shelter longer.
Councillor?
And just one last question on that. You know, some of those hours are on the weekend, some of them may be hours when we're not around staff. So is there like a check and balance on the fulfillment of hours and all things? Like, do your staff inspect the place, how it's being run? Do you check that the hours are actually manned, that kind of thing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno, I work very closely with the Niagara SPCA with regards to the shelter, the services required, the monthly reports, and meetings.
Counselor?
I just thought of this as you were talking. I remember in your capacity, we used to get numbers on bylaw issues. And I'm wondering if, and I thought at one time, shows my age and time on here, that we got reports on the flow put there in animals, in rescues, in adoptions, that kind of stuff. Do we do that, or is that something you keep, but perhaps we could get circulated on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bruno, it is on our website. We put the quarterly stats there. So if you go to the website, Animal Control, you'll see the spreadsheets there, and it's there for the past ballparking 8 years. You can check everything there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Sherry. Next is item 14.2, the 2024 year-end surplus and project closeout, 2025-68. And we have Adam coming forward for the presentation on the 2024 year-end surplus and project closeout.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens.
Oh, turn your microphone on. There you go.
First time.
First time. We'll give you a little slack.
All right, I'll start again. Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. This evening, I'll take you through some of the highlights from the 2024 year end. So, as you can see from the agenda, there's a few things I want to go through today. I won't go into extreme detail in all of them, but at different points in the presentation, I will pause and I'll ask if there's any questions. As we begin, though, first I'd like to acknowledge the hard work that staff have made across the city in contributing to this year end. This year was a bit different because not only were we closing the books, but we were also implementing a new financial system. So there were some challenges, but we got through it. First up is the recommendation to report 2025-68, and that is to receive the report. It is that the year-end levy surplus be allocated to the encumbrance reserve, and that the reserve transfers noted in the report be approved, and that the capital and related project reserve balances in the appendices also be approved. The next two slides you will have seen before. Excuse me, they were included in past budget presentations and presentations like this one where we go through the actual results. And the reason we include these is just as a reminder of the city's vision, the city's mission, the city's values, and also the strategic plan. And if we take care of our people, we try to make things simple, we do projects of value, then ultimately we'll succeed in delivering quality product to our customers and we'll succeed in achieving our strategic plan. First, we'll look at the levy. The levy ended the year with a $219,000 surplus. This report recommends that we transfer that surplus to the encumbrance reserve for two things. The first being $125,000 for corporate communications. So that's going to cover public engagement and analysis work that's being done throughout the course of 2025. And the second is for $94,000 for new tax and water software. We previously asked for money for the tax and water software, but we're here again. And that's because we need to address a few things with the software. Number one is cybersecurity. Number two is that our current system is at the end of life. Number three, it's going to address some of the questions you get from your constituents regarding the fixed fees changing every month. It's going to be user-friendly, and it will lead to actually more systems that are customer-facing coming on board into one system. And secondly, it's actually for a 2-year license. So looking at the revenue variance, it's really driven by unbudgeted grant funding. And this funding relates to capital. And you'll see, if I go back a slide, that you'll see a corresponding or almost corresponding increase in transfers to the capital reserve. Now, you might wonder, well, why didn't we budget these? Well, you did budget. You actually saw it when we were looking at the capital budget in past budgets. But because of the timing of, we don't know when the timing is going to happen. We don't know when we're going to spend the money related to these projects and be able to recognize this revenue. We don't budget for it in our levy budget. The only thing that we budget for in our levy budget related to capital are the reoccurring grants. So also contributing to the revenue variance are some things like positive variances on investment. We had some land sales. We have a grant from Valet. We had penalties and interest, and we had higher than expected rental income from the Recreation Department. Next, we have personnel expenses. Well, personnel expenses were 2.3% over budget this year. The big driver of that was that we had retro payments as a result of union job reevaluations. We also had some students, additional students. We had some overtime. We also had some staffing changes. Offsetting that were we had some grants, some operating grants, particularly in the culture division, that offset some of these additional spending. We also had some gapping. So we had a gapping in a chief building officer, chief building officer, and we also had the fire chief. So the next two slides, I'm not going to read this. The next two slides are related to favorable and unfavorable operating expenses. But the two things when I get to the next two slides.
Just wondering when that was.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the next two slides highlight some of the favorable and unfavorable operating expense variances. But the two that I want to point out are the first one being related to the city-owned properties drainage charges. They were quite a bit higher this year, and in year, council had approved some one-time funding for some past expenditures, and also it related to some catch-up billings for some past construction projects. Now, this was funded $461,000 from reserve, from the drainage reserve, but now that drainage reserve balance is zero. So we do know that there are going to be more drainage construction projects that are going to be built in upcoming years. We budget for $85,000 a year to cover these, but this experience has showed us that it could and probably will be higher than the $85,000. So it should be a consideration that we look at when we look at the 2026 levy budget. The other thing I want to point out is of that variance, of that $1.5 million variance, we are expecting that $521,000 will be recovered through future land sales. So I'm going to pause now and ask if anyone has any questions.
That's good, because I'll ask those who have questions. Questions, Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Your Worship. Adam, great job so far. I'm wondering if you could go back to that. I believe it's the second slide where you talked about,
one
yes,
here?
that's it. Yep. So, when I see surpluses, they're one-time issues in that year. So I'm fine with one-time expenses that are one and done. So the new tax and water software, anything that's IT, I'm gonna likely be persuaded to put my hand up because I think that's the way forward for a small community, to be nimble and efficient. The 125 for corporate communications. So I understand that we've had corporate communications and public engagement like we've never had before on steroids, and a great job. But my question really is, if we want to keep that up, then that isn't a one and done. And so that gets us out from under for, I'm assuming, the intensiveness of what we've done up to now and the balance of the year. But is that a signal, a red flag, that in order to do that level of corporate communications, we may need that kind of number going forward?
Through the mayor to the councillor, it's quite possible that we will need to have an increase in our corporate communications budget. What that amount is right now, we don't know, and we will definitely consider that as we prepare for the 2026 budget.
Okay. That's fine for now, unless, no, you're fine, okay. Yeah, I realize the future, like, my view is sometimes you get behind on things because it's a whole new version, but that doesn't make it the new normal. And so that's where I'm really leading with that, but that's fine for now, thank you.
Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to the third floor on your first presentation. Hopefully not your last. No, you're doing a great job. I appreciate you, and I do appreciate you mentioning those two old slides, and get rid of them next time. That was the old director of finance had those. Anyways, you did mention in your presentation about software, and we budget software that's for reoccurring costs. Like, I looked at my 2025 budget book at home, and we budgeted $720,000 for this year for the city. So you're telling me that $720,000 is all reoccurring costs for software?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, correct.
Wow. And I thought we made a deal with Niagara Falls or something on shared services on software, so that's included in that also?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes.
Okay, I'm just a bit overwhelmed, that's all. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Any further questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Adam. I'll pick up on what Gary was talking about. The $125,000 for corporate communications. What does that go towards on the communications end?
CAO?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, and council. So that covers off mainly two components. One is, we mentioned there's quite a bit of extra public engagement that happened this year, and we did have to bring in some third-party help to do that. This helps cover off that, and we have temporarily added a individual to help us gain traction with gathering statistics and putting together information for the healthcare committee this year, because we talked about it at a couple of different meetings, just the amount of work that would take to get to that level, and this will help cover those costs.
Okay. Secondly, is the 125 the only amount that's in, I'll say, that account for public engagement, or is there other monies that are there?
CAO?
Yes. Specifically for public engagement, analysis, and so forth.
Through the mayor to the councillor, we have never budgeted specifically for public engagement. This is our first year into that. We have about a $50,000 corporate communication budget in total to get the total message of the city out on all topics. So this is the public communication budget. We've never actually had a dedicated effort towards this.
So by that, sorry, through Mr. Mayor. So by that, you're saying surveys and stuff, that's what this is totally dedicated to?
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, that work was done by staff. Staff was able to move off other work. What this was done is these funds were to help put on the public engagement where we brought the third party in to help be a moderator on the healthcare events, to help do the live TV shows and presentation. So this wasn't, I wouldn't think of this as survey work. I would think of this as those other value added to get the message out and to bring the community into that engagement process.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess my final question is, how many customer engagements are we looking at next year in the form of surveys? I mean, this year we had a lot, far more than I've ever seen in a year in all my years in council. And I just wondered, is that our strategy going forward? And at what cost? And is there going to be an extra cost for consultants tagged onto that?
CAO, through the mayor to the councillor and council, I think it's a great question. I think council knows staff starts their budget process about now. We tried to get most of it in the June to July period and then have internal consultation before we start putting together the final report back to council. Staff will be booking meetings with council to talk about these types of topics. These are service levels, just like we had earlier. We had a decision about a service level, which we changed for animal care. And staff will be looking to council to direct us what the service level you'd like to see on this. Council will make that decision as we go forward. We look forward to your advice on how to move forward on that. Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we'll review the results of the city's self-sustaining entities. First we have building, and in building we had a $550,000 surplus. This is primarily the result of large building permits for the Asai site as well as Jung Bungslower. And then we also had personal savings because we didn't have a CBO. Next we have the marina. The marina had higher than expected contract services expenses, and those were related to security and wildlife control, and as a result ran a $49,000 deficit. The beach ran a $157,000 deficit, but as we discussed during the 2025 budget process, this is basically the portion of that's allocated to the levy to recognize local usage, and this will be these revenue projections will be right-sized in the 2026 budget. Next, we have the cemetery. The cemetery ran a deficit of $19,500, and this was related to land surveying costs. Each of these cemeteries, the ones that we had at the beginning of the year and ones that we inherited during the year, were all surveyed, and these were the costs of surveying those lands. What's not reflected on here is that the cemetery continues to be subsidized by the levy, and when we look at the operating expenses, about $240,000 is covered under the parks budget. So we'll end the SSE section with basically a summary of the reserve balances for each of them, where the reserves land at the end of 2025. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Councilor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I remember when we had this discussion about right-sizing cemetery fees and getting them in line, but is it fair to say that, and maybe it is because it doesn't necessarily say that it'll ever be self-sustaining, but my understanding of the whole cemetery issue was that because of inherited cemeteries we took, because of that really we can't raise the rate on graves already in there, the internment costs and what's that, perpetual care. So is it fair to have cemeteries in a self-sustaining entity box?
Who wants to tackle that one? CAO?
Thanks through the mayor to the councillor. Since I guess I was the one that put him in that box, I'll answer the question and take the heat off of the new director of finance. It was put in that box to highlight the fact that there is a revenue stream and there's also these costs. And ultimately, you would be balanced if the trust fund that the city was supposed to get, we got. I think from a staff perspective, you don't want to lose that discussion, because if there's an opportunity to, one, build that trust fund, either by virtue of other surplus or other revenue streams, land sales, whatever, to make sure that they do become self-sustaining, or like future conversations with upper levels of government. Because cemeteries is a very interesting phenomenon where we're forced to take on a service to which there is legislation that says certain things should happen, but those things never happened. And it wasn't within council's purview at the time to make sure those things happened. Yet council is stuck or is picking up the social cost and the actual financial cost of maintaining those cemeteries. So it may be, by maintaining it here, there's an opportunity to have a future conversation with upper levels of government for looking for support to fund those trusts, because those trusts should have been given to the city with funds in them. So that way they weren't on the levy.
Councillor?
Yeah, you know, as you explain that, I like the structure of the box in the sense that it keeps our eye on the ball. And otherwise it would be a line item in the budget. And I'm not so sure it wouldn't just fall to probably where it did fall in the past is we didn't pay much attention to it, and then we kept inheriting these things, and nobody ever looked at that as an entity or as a business center. So thank you for the explanation. I can live with that process going forward now that I've heard that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Further questions to this point? Adam, continue.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go through the city's rate programs. First off is the water program. And the water program was interesting this year. We had 20 water main breaks, and we incurred over $135,000 in unexpected contractor costs. And despite that, despite all these unplanned water main breaks, the water department was able to manage their expenses and come in with a $34,000 surplus. The wastewater program, there was a $783,000 surplus. What was driving this surplus was a reduction of $958,000 in Niagara Region wastewater charges. The primary driver for this was lower than anticipated flows to the water wastewater plant. We had lower water levels. This is an interesting one because we also saw that there was 5 millimeters of less rain than the previous year, and 707 megaliters, did I get that right, megaliters, reported wastewater going back to the plant. So staff is monitoring these impacts, and we're going to take that into consideration for future budgets. But yes, there was a surplus, and we will see if there can be any benefits to the 2026 budget. But that said, the region's financial plan is expecting, a 10% increase in their budget. So this may only be something that could dampen that increase. But we are looking to research lower fixed charges for lower water users as well.
So before we move on, Adam, one question I'll have, because we've been doing this for a while, is the two gentlemen that are here, because Steve is away this evening, whoever can answer it. With regards to what we've been doing in the wastewater with the relining, and I know the numbers here probably don't take into 100% of what's been done at this time, but just through your numbers, are you guys seeing fruits of your labor out there that it is decreasing the amount of infiltration within our lines so that we can look at rates as we move down the road? And, we understand that, if it rains less, we have less snow, and the lake is lower, that does have a huge impact on us. But when those come back up, are we still going to see less because our pipes are a little tighter?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are seeing some positive results in terms of the levels in the pipes when we do receive a heavy rainfall. We've completed quite a bit of mainline work. I think we're up to about 16 kilometers of mainline CIPP lining. We're going to be putting out a tender for lateral lining, and a report will come back for council's approval to do additional work. We are seeing the results. They're not quantified at this time. What we're trying to do is monitor them over in the fall. We're going to do area by area and try and show the difference between the flows during these rain events. So that's the plan.
Great, thanks, Joe. Any further questions, Councillor Bagley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through Joe there, I got a quick question. You mentioned coming with the council regarding lateral lining. Is that for this year or is that for next year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is for this year. The intent, it was approved through the infrastructure needs study report. We have been working very hard at completing inspections in the lateral themselves, in the wastewater lateral between the pipe in the roadway and the house. We've completed approximately 1,000 investigations. Those have been reviewed. We have approximately 300 laterals that we want to recommend lining. Again, that's already been budgeted for and approved. We want to get those done as soon as possible in the priority areas. If all goes well, we're going to line not just the municipal side, but we're considering lining the private side because just for, there's no municipal boundary on a pipe that's leaking, right? Or that's allowing water to come in. So that is the plan, and we're moving that forward as we speak. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one more question for Adam. I'm glad to see there is a surplus, and I'm super glad to mention that you're going to look at our ratepayers' rates for next year under wastewater. It's something that a lot of people are suffering somewhat, and I'm glad staff is looking into that. So thank you very much.
Councillor Bruno?
Through you two, I'm not sure if it'd be Adam or Joe. So with this surplus, I like where you're looking, like Councillor Bagu said, but this isn't the first scare up or down by some unforeseen event. Whether it was leaks, high rain, higher lake levels, breaks, all these things can happen. And I'm confident that you guys, all of you, finance and operations, look at future impacts, because I worry that you could be reducing that rate and the next year gyrate back up to having to increase it. And I think that doesn't give people a lot of confidence. So I'm wondering if you'd be looking at like a rate stabilization, no pun intended, rainy day fund, to look at leveling out us as counselors and ratepayers to getting large gyrations going forward in the rate.
Through the mayor to the councillor, yeah, it's definitely something that we can look at.
Good. Further questions on this portion? Okay, move along.
Okay, next in our review of the rate program, we have the storm sewer program. It ended the year with a $2,000 surplus. This was despite a shortfall in fixed charges. The staff were able to manage expenses similar to the water program and end the year in a plus. Our next slide summarizes the rate reserve balances, the ones we have forecasted for the end of 2025. So I'll pause here and then ask if there's any questions. Seeing none, we'll move on to the capital and related project summaries. There's two slides here. The first slide's in dollars, the second slide's in the number of projects that were open at the beginning of the year, approved, closed, and then at the end of the year. If we look at this first slide, it's the dollars. At the end of the year, we have $27 million in projects still open to be completed. And if we look at the number slide, it shows that that is 75 projects. So the story here, though, is we opened the year with 78 projects. Council approved 34 projects by way of the 2024 capital budget. The council approved 21 additional projects throughout the course of the year, which resulted in 133 projects being open, and staff, either by completing a project or closing out a project, closed out 58 projects throughout the course of the year. So it is a big achievement to close out that many projects in 1 year. I think it's the most since I've been here. And we did end the year with less projects than we started. Any questions about the capital program? No? Okay. The next slide is just a summary, high-level summary of all the reserves that the city has. At the end of the year, we have $19.1 million in reserves. We started the year with 18.7. So even though we had these puts and takes throughout the course of the year, where we had additional operating expenses, we had additional capital projects, we still managed to put money aside for future initiatives. The next slide is one you have seen during the 2025 budget process. It outlines the city's debt position. The blue parts of the graph represent what the debt that was approved during the 2025 budget. The other colors represent debt that the city already has. What this slide doesn't represent, though, is any future debt that may be required for either the east side lands, marina dredging, the wastewater going under the canal, or a child care and recreation center that might be needed. So we'll end off the presentation with our report recommendation. And again, that's to receive the report. That's that the levy surplus be allocated to the encumbrance reserve, that the reserve transfers that were recommended in the report, both the operating ones and the capital, be approved. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Adam, and congratulations on your first bout here on the third floor, as Councillor Peggy said. Before I put the report on the floor, any further questions on the presentation? Okay, I'll have Councillor Bader.
I'd just like to say, Adam, it seems to be much shorter than what we usually had gotten. So kudos to you, sir.
So I'm going to have Councilors Bruno and Beauregard move that Corporate Services Department Financial Services Division Report 2025-68, subject 2024 year-end surplus and project closeout be received, and that the year-end levy surplus be allocated to the city's encumbrance reserve, that the reserve transfers recommended in Report 2025-68 be approved, and that the capital and related project and reserve balances of appendices E, F, and G of Corporate Services Department Report 2025-68 be approved. Questions or comments on this? All in favor? That's carried. 14.3 is the grain terminal public engagement update, 2025-94. And Jasmine is doing this one.
I'll kick it off.
CAO and comms, okay.
I guess it's been a tag team for these last couple public engagements. So thank you, Council, for hearing us tonight on two, actually. First, we'll start with the grain terminal. So if we go to the next slide, our grain terminal communication or public engagement occurred over the last, it's not clicking to the next slide. Occurred over the last 2 months. Starting February 11th, we came to Council with a report looking forward with our communication plan. It included online paper surveys. They were across the city. We did have 2 open houses. They were very illuminating. Lots of great comments came out of those. Our deadline for collecting surveys was March 21st. And then we compiled all the community feedback for today's presentation. Coming out of that presentation and coming out of all of that work, we came forward with a recommendation. And that recommendation was really to move forward with what we've already, and Council's already advised us to do. And that is to seek out individuals that might be willing to become future viable tenants. We have hired a third party to help us shop this across not just Canada, but potentially around the world, where people might be interested. We did hear, and our communications manager is going to walk us through what we heard, but this recommendation really does stem from what we heard. We heard many people wanted to maintain the greenhouse, as is, the terminals as is, but we heard a lot of individuals would be willing to look at something else, another usage, whether it be industrial or something like that. So we've left it very open right now, and we look for direction from Council, but we've left it very open with our consultant to help us look at any possible tenant that could potentially use the site going forward. On that, I'm going to sit down and pass this over to our Manager of Communication to walk us through the results. Thank you.
So once again, thank you, Mayor Steele and Council, for the opportunity to talk with you tonight about what we heard around our grain terminal public engagement so far. So these are the results that we gathered between February 26th and March 21st. And I'll just remind you, for this engagement, we did an online and paper survey and also an open house. So for the survey, we were open again between February 26th and March 21st. We had 549 responses, which is quite good. We had 646 open field comments, so that's reasonable for us to go through and kind of look at, and you'll see we've done our best to sort of provide you a summary of what we've heard in those open field comments. This survey just took 4 minutes to complete, and we see a very good completion rate of 90%, so that shows the people that are completing this survey, 80%, sorry, the people that are completing this survey are engaged in and interested in getting through the whole thing. As usual, I will start with who we heard from. And so in this survey, we see 74% of respondents from Port Colborne and about 95% from either Port Colborne or somewhere else in Niagara. So this one is the first survey that we've looked at where we don't see everybody really largely coming from Port Colborne, but we see a little bit more of a broader representation in Niagara this time. So we'll look at 4 areas. First, I'll talk about the historical and cultural significance of the grain terminal and some of the comments that we heard related to that. Then we'll talk about future use and the development of the grain terminal property, some comments about funding, and then there's a few other notable comments that we wanted to bring forward as well. So from a historical and cultural significance point of view, this question asked respondents, considering its location near the Welland Canal and Sugarloaf Harbour Marina, do you think the grain terminal contributes to Port Colborne's culture and character? And we see 80% of respondents believing that yes, the grain terminal does contribute to Port Colborne's culture and character. This question asked respondents, how important is it to you that the grain terminal continue to operate as a hub for receiving, storing, and transporting grain? And we see 75% believe that there is some level of importance for the grain terminal to continue operating as a hub for receiving, storing, and transporting grain. And to get there, we added those first two, the green and blue numbers at the top, where people indicated it was either extremely important or somewhat important. Some of the comments that we received around historical and cultural significance, we did hear some respondents noting that there was significance of the grain terminal due to the shrinking mill optical illusion, which has become a staple in Port Colborne's culture. We also had respondents noting the length of time that the grain terminal has been operational in Port Colborne and noting that it's a legacy in the industry. And others noting that if it's not possible to release the terminal for continued operation, that it should be used as a museum or something similar to highlight its significance in the community. So next, under the future use and development of the grain terminal property, this question asked respondents, it said the previous tenant has now moved out of the grain terminal and the facility is currently empty. What do you think the city should do with the property or the facility in the future? And we see 62% would like to see that the grain terminal be released for continued use of its intended purpose or its continued use as a grain terminal. So this image is a photo of one of the boards that we had at the open house we shared an open house for the grain terminal and the marina kind of topics at the same time. And we had this as an option. People that came to the open house could come and kind of vote for their favorite options. And so we gave them a couple of stickers and then they could vote. So this is the same question. What do you think the city should do with the grain terminal property? And we see the most support for the option of finding a new tenant and releasing it. This question said, if the property was used for commercial or industrial purposes, it could require additional commercial truck traffic to move goods on and off the property. In recent years, the previous tenant had around 15 to 20 trucks per day visiting the site. And in your opinion, what would be an appropriate number of trucks per day for this location? So we see 40% of respondents believing that 15 to 20 trucks per day is an appropriate amount of traffic. And 96% would like to see under 100 trucks per day. So we can see that that's kind of our guardrails there. So some comments around funding. This question asked if the grain terminal property was to be used as a public space in the future, so something like a park or a publicly accessible area, how do you think the city should fund that project? And we see 68% of respondents thinking that it should be funded through grants from upper levels of government. This question said, if the grain terminal property required demolition, the cost is approximately $12 million. How do you think that the city should fund the expense if the city would be used, again, as a publicly accessible space like a park or something similar? We see 66% of respondents, again, looking at grants from other levels of government to fund the demolition. And this is for a public space. This question is the same question, but for a commercial space. So we see 54% of respondents looking at thinking that the city should use grants from upper levels of government, again, for the commercial or industrial space. And we see in this question as well, 53% of respondents supporting a private partnership to fund this if there's some sort of commercial or industrial use of the space. So on to the last section, other notable comments. So these are a couple of the open field comments, as I mentioned, just to give you a sense of the sort of things that we were hearing from people and also comments that we heard during the open houses. As I mentioned before, noting the industry importance or the grain terminal as an important facet of Niagara's agricultural industry, and we heard this a lot at the open house. Some respondents suggested that painting a mural or beautifying the property in some way would enhance its value as a landmark. We heard a number of responses from residents opposing the use of property taxes to fund the project in any way. Some are on economic growth, where commenters are stressing the loss of jobs if the grain terminal were to be not released, and respondents worrying about revenue loss for the city as well. Some respondents were opposed to the demolition of the terminal, especially as it relates to the historical or cultural significance of the facility in Port Colborne. We also heard a number of suggestions around an alternate use for the property, respondents showing moderate support for something like a private developer to continue the industrial use, or for the land to be used as public enjoyment. And again, we put these recommendations back on the screen so you can sort of see what we have in the report. But that's the end of my presentation.
Great, thank you. Why don't we just put the report on the floor so we can do comments and questions at the same time? So I'm going to have Councillors Hoyle and Danch move the Chief Administrative Officer Report 2025-93 be received. The Council directs staff to continue working with subject matter experts in the field to assess and identify viable future tenants for the Port Colborne Grain Terminal. Questions? Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't know who it's for, you or our CAO, but there were at least 2 correspondence items that we received in our package today, also requesting that we kept the services continuing with the grain terminal. And so I just wondered how much of an impact that has on decisions going forward.
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, well, ultimately the decision of where we move will be council's. We've given that information to the third party we're using to help source out who can go or who might be a potential tenant, so we can bring that back to council. Ultimately, the 2 letters that we received, council received, were very supportive of the agricultural use. If we can find a tenant, that's the question that we have to see if we can. We know that there are grain terminals within the vicinity that don't necessarily have tenants as well. So that's where I think with council's direction, we won't limit it to just agriculture, but agricultural, that those organizations clearly are interested in trying to keep it agricultural.
And just to further that, I did receive a call based on one of those organizations through a company that runs grain terminals. So I pass that along to Mr. Long and his group. So just anything that does come in, we do pass it along to that floor. Councillor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jasmine. Great presentation. Actually, great open house. A few of us councillors were there. You and your staff did a lot of work, and so kudos to all of you. Did a great job done. One question on the surveys, on the comments. It says using new property taxes from new ... What's the new ... From new taxpayers?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bagu. Thank you for your compliments to begin with. It does say it's new property taxes from new homes in Port Colborne is what it says.
So what they mean is somebody new comes and builds a new house, we tax them for the grain terminal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if the CAO could maybe expand on that option for me, because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor. So one of the options was to say you don't leave the tax on the current, but as new tax dollars come online, we would, I guess, allocate those tax dollars to do the work. You know how we talk every year in the budget about assessment growth, and we say maybe there's 1 or 2% assessment growth. Well, and sometimes that assessment growth goes to offset other costs in the budget. Well, in this case, potentially, one revenue source is to say that assessment growth needs to go to maybe fix this problem, and the council could direct that assessment growth anywhere. So when we were doing the survey, we just looked at as many options as we could, so that way people could have an opportunity to consider, options that might exist. Not saying that they have to exist, or those have to be the options.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the answer to that question. I guess you could also ask the people paying the wastewater how they like to pay for it. Maybe it's the same thing. The new people could pay for it. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Jasmine, for that hard work and that. I don't doubt the authenticity of the comments, but I have a lot of trouble with the conclusion and the volume of respondents and the fact that we don't ask the context of the respondent. So let me go through them. So when you look at this, you have 549 people who applied to this. I don't know how many are agri-based. So if I was a farmer, far and wide from here, and if I was the two pieces of correspondence, I would do exactly what those two pieces of correspondence represent, because they represent farmers and they're a great viable business. It's interesting to me, though, that a viable business that does grain didn't survive. And that should at least tell us something, or at least make us skeptical. One of the interesting comments by someone of what would you do talked about, what we could learn from Buffalo in their grain terminals. I don't know that I can learn much because they have 13 empty ones. And I also don't know that whether painting a mural on them is going to self-sustain that building. I also don't know that the numbers say $8.2 million to bring it back into shape and had another number here, versus 10 million to tear it down. Now, I was on a council that a number of years ago inherited this, and we wanted to save 9 jobs, and we had all the money given to us by the federal government to tear it down. I don't know if today I regret not tearing it down, notwithstanding I wanted those 9 jobs. But at the end of the day, that price has gone from fully funded at about $3.5 million to $10 million. And I'm not so sure I want to delay the inevitable on a 100-year-old building. And I've talked to the guy who's run it for 52 years. And certainly on the marketing side, he says it'll be very hard to fill because that's not what they do today, farmers. Add to that when you look at the actual numbers in the survey, it's interesting that, let me just scroll up here, that correctly, where am I here? Sorry, I can't find this as fast as I'd like. Oh, I think we were at, was it 60? So here we are. 62% expressed support for finding a new tenant and releasing the site, which is admirable. So that's the site and the grain terminal. The next line is about 53% support working with a private company if the terminal were demolished for commercial and industrial use. So the difference between keeping it as a grain elevator or demolishing it and putting new industry or commercial there is only, what was that, 9% difference. Then you look further down in the survey, it talks about 44% would support private funding to help develop a public space here, which involves tearing down the terminal. So you have 3 comments, 2 of which say tear it down to do 2 different things, and 1 says by a margin of 9%. So in theory, you correct me if I'm wrong, the tearing it down and doing commercial or industrial, the tearing it down doing public space actually exceeds the 62% that would want it just used as a terminal. Even if you don't have the answer on it, it's fairly marginal because it's only 9% if you don't have the number.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno, I can't tell you for sure right now because I don't have the numbers in front of me. What I can tell you is that some of the questions, respondents can choose more than one answer. So you'd have to be careful with adding those numbers together.
For sure, because it doesn't add to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea would be for these results to give you a sense of what the people in the community are thinking, and then council can make the decision that is best for you.
Right. So so my concern was that the recommendation, although Mr. Bull spoke eloquently about marking it to everything, if you actually look at the recommendation, the council directs staff to continue working with the subject matter experts in the field to assess and identify viable future tenants for the Port Colborne grain terminal. I read that and I think of finding somebody to go in the grain terminal. I don't read it as finding somebody, if you tear it down, to do commercial, or I see you nodding your head to that.
So Councillor, you're right. So if you add one word called site at the end of the terminal, it describes the site. So it's not, you're not pegged to a grain terminal.
Yes. And so if that could be done along with, though, more importantly, the people marketing it, that they get an in-depth look at other things and don't just focus on a market of ag.
It could be a combination of all kinds of markets,
sure.
Including agriculture and things.
Sure. So I guess, if we could get that changed, and that's fine.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Do you want
so I'm going to take you as an amendment to add the word site at the end of terminal. Can I get a seconder there, Councillor Elliott?
Whereabouts?
On the word, on the
so say
report recommendation.
Site.
Oh, the recommendation, sorry.
Under the recommendation, yeah. So it just talks about the site, because we all know it as the grain terminal.
Get back to the figures you were.
Okay. So you're all right with seconding that? Okay, so on the amendment, we're just going to add the word site. Any questions to that? I didn't think there would be. All in favor? That's carried. Next.
So I guess finally, I think we need to also drill down that if we find somebody for a grain terminal site, that some things ought to be in that RFP, because what it means is you could partially fix it up, you could ask us to help fix it up, but you're still left with a 100-year-old building that needs $8 million worth of work and $10 million to tear it down. I just want the person you're marketing this to not have any doubt that they may be the person fixing it up. Because I really don't want to spend a lot of money on it and still have a liability of $10 million. So as long as the RFP is very clear that someone taking over, and I also don't want somebody to take it over for 2 years to get through the next 2 seasons, and it ages 2 more years. We don't make enough out of it to even cover the inflation cost of tearing it down. So as long as this isn't as simple, and I know we were trying to make it simple, is easy, but the devil's in the details. And so as long as that's done, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, questions, further questions? Okay, so as you guys know, I'm involved in the marine industry very deeply. I attend all kinds of events throughout the year with the shipping industry, grain farmers, grain shippers, everybody. I'm going to tell you right now, this facility will never be a grain terminal again as it sits. It's 1909 technology that is not used anymore. Anything new that's built is all to today's standards, which they don't build buildings like that anymore. They don't. A lot of them are steel, and I mean, you can go to Highway 20 and the 406, and that's a modern grain terminal. That's what you see. You can see Mr. Veenstra's farm out on concession 2. Is it concession 2? Veenstra's farm, Ronnie?
Yep.
Yeah. Again, modern grain terminal. That's what you'll see if somebody takes over the site and they either tear the building down or try to repurpose it. Their new grain terminal is going to look like a modern. It's just what is in there, and it is a museum. When we did the tour, and I mean, if you think about it, when it originally exploded back in 1919, I think is what the year was, the weigh scales that sit on the very top floor weren't even damaged. I mean, that's how well those things were made. I mean, that company only went out of business about 20 years ago in England. Those things are pretty antique. I mean, it's cool to look at, but that's not what you use anymore, even though they are pretty accurate. So I think the public has a perception that, oh, we'll just get another Parrish and Heimbecker to move in. They're not. We had 2 employees there, guys, that worked out of there for that facility. The others that worked in the office worked for P&H for several facilities. They weren't just for that facility. But there was 2 employees that were moved to their site in Hamilton. You're not going to get that. So I think we have to be realistic. Is it a cool building? Certainly it's cool. Is it neat to have the shrinking mill? Yes. Is that something you could try to tie into some type of a new industry that went in there that may be able to revitalize the building? The number you throw of $8 million, throw that out the door. I'm just telling you. I've talked to professionals that are in the business. They know the building. It's way higher than that just to get it back to use it. And I mean, Mr. Lannon ran that facility for 52 years. He'll tell you, it's past it. It's done. It's sorry, but it's done. So we have, I mean, this council really needs to be realistic here in what comes forward and listen to the experts. And you know, if you can pick a winner that comes in that's actually going to make us money, not make us spend money, which is what we've been doing, then we can go from there. I got Councillor Beauregard first.
Yeah, through your worship. Just when you made that point, I understand what the residents of Port Colborne and their knowledge on this may not be well known, like what exactly what they're dealing with in terms of grain terminals. But the grain farmers of Ontario, I would think, are a little bit more well versed in this particular area. And in their letter to us, the correspondence, they specifically say, "We urge your continued support for the operational use of this terminal." So are they referring to the building in that case, or just that land? Do you?
I mean, I think that's something, Councillor, that we could ask Mr. Long and the team there to actually reach out.
Okay.
I mean, sure we could, but P&H, probably the largest grain handler in the Great Lakes, can't make $1 there. Who's going to come in and run a business that's got to put well over $10 million into the facility just to keep going? All the roofs need to be done. There's all kinds of work that needs to be done. When we did the tour, we're kind of showing a little bit of that. You know, you can't expect somebody to come in and then all of a sudden the city's got to take up the slack and all of a sudden it costs us money. It's not fair to the taxpayer that they're paying on this. So, but that's just not how grain is handled anymore. I mean, no, we don't want to lose grain terminals, but does somebody come in and I mean, there's lots of land there, whether they tear that building down and start with a new pallet and build a brand new grain facility that's quite frankly a lot smaller than what's there, but probably handles the same amount and moves it in and out. And then they can do other products shipped in and out, whether it's ag or anything else out of that site. Because technically there's 3 docks there. Only 2 are in use, which is the south dock and the west dock. The east dock needs to be rehabbed. Part of it was filled in when they took away the unloading of that side of the building and put in the rail and truck system that they used to put grain in and out of the building. So, I mean, I think we got to listen to those that are in this business. And believe me, at the events that I go to and the grain handlers that I talk to, nice old building you got, but it doesn't work anymore. Like it just doesn't. Like it's done differently, and it's done more efficiently, less labor, less money, and grain can get in and out a lot quicker than what that facility is. I mean, the Robin Hood's 1946, 1949 it was built. They're actually expanding, and the expansion, or they want to expand. The expansion they want to do is the modern grain terminal at the south end of that building. They want to build. London Ag wants to build a new facility there. They're talking about it, so hopefully they do, because you know they're very busy, and they're going to be bringing in more ships this year than they did last year, my understanding. So, which is good. I mean, and it's good for our farmers. So, yeah, anything we can do to bring in more grain and help our farmers in this area. And as far away as crops come in to Port Colborne and they're shipped in and out, yeah, let's help them as much as possible. But I can't see somebody coming in spending lots and lots of money on an old facility. It's $10 million today, then what's next? So, anyways, Councillor Bruno?
Yeah, just to Councillor Beauregard's comment, I would encourage them to bring us, and this recommendation that now just says sites doesn't preclude them from bringing forward some of their members or businesses that, you know, I mean, if they can fill that place, that's the easy peasy part of this, right? And pay enough to put aside money for us for the eventual tear down. But I did want to raise one other point that that I think deserves at least some thought. We're dealing with this grain terminal in isolation, and from a property line perspective, we're within 100 yards of the marina land. And what do they both have in common? They're both on Port Colborne's waterfront. And if you were to take a step further, I don't think it's too big for tonight in this discussion. You've got a hospital that might be ours and is on the waterfront. So now all of a sudden you have, as a whole, you have 2 to 3 sites in Port Colborne on the waterfront. Should we be having somebody look at this when we go out with these RSP, maybe leave the hospital out, but let them look at Port Colborne's waterfront and 2 locations that are physically tied together, landmass. So I would encourage us to, if those people are going out there looking, that we give them the whole picture. That we have a marina that needs work, and we have a grain terminal all on Lake Erie, all on our waterfront.
Certainly.
Make us a proposition.
Yeah.
Come up with an idea. If you don't, what have we wasted? We've added that in, and if they only want the elevator, so be it. If they want to look at that whole thing in a package, they could score different points on a matrix to look at the whole thing.
Mr. CAO, I think you can take that as direction for Mr. Long's department. Is that all right?
For yourself? Yeah, 100%. I can say also, having talked to Mr. Long and the subject matter expert, we have had that question already from potential individuals looking at the property is how does it integrate with the marina? How does it integrate with the rest of the city? So some individuals we know looking at it that may wish to pursue further conversations have looked at the total area. So if council is interested in giving us direction to further those conversations, that would be helpful based on some comments we've already received.
And we also, council, have to be cognizant of ADM milling.
Do you need a motion?
No, I think we can take it as direction. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it's all part of that package, I believe. Yeah. But we still have to be cognizant of ADM milling, guys. Because they're looking some future expansion also. They've contacted us with that. I get asked at every marine meeting I go to, because this is known that this property is available, from companies that want to come in, and they're looking at all kinds of things. One is shipping 12 months a year out of Port Colborne, which they believe, because of the tariff issue, will actually be of greater value to us because of tariffs than before tariffs. Shipbuilding. I've been contacted by a shipbuilder that may look at a property like this. There's all kinds of things. It's out there. People know. So I think if we give Mr. Long and his staff the reins here, get them out there, and they'll bring a myriad of projects that'll come back to us. This won't sit long, I don't believe. Councilor?
I just think at the end you've got a gem and something that's old and needs work, and perhaps, to get the gem, you have to take the whole package, and that at least allows maybe them to score a higher points if we end up finding 4 or 5 people interested, and you do a matrix, and you can bid on one, you can bid on both. At least we've got something then to look at. Yes, no, send it back, but love to be able to combine both and alleviate 2 big issues that are facing the future of Port Colborne with two giant price tags.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that Mr. Long keeps us up to date. Some of those meetings will have to go in camera because of company names, and what they may want to do is private information until a deal is actually done. So some could be updates there, and obviously some updates may be brought here. So we'll make sure the CAO sends that along to Mr. Long. All right. Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. (14.4) Sugarloaf Marina and Public Boat Launch Dredging Public Engagement Update 2025-93. CAO and Jasmine on this one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council. So this is actually following well in line with what we just had the conversation about, maybe combining the future planning of the two properties. So just as this comes up, so we did start the marina public consultation. We started that around the same time as we did the consultation for the grain terminal in February. We also had two open houses. Those open houses produced a lot of information. Just anecdotally and just sharing a personal conversation, it was very interesting to hear the number of individuals that were involved with the project back when it originally happened, or when the marina was originally built, specifically the rock wall, and how the water flows work within the marina, and recommendations they had long-term to think about as we worked with our consultant on how to fix this problem on a long-term basis. So we did wrap up the public consultation around March 21st, and then we're bringing forward the feedback which we heard today for your consideration. This is a picture of the boat launch, and you can see, well, you can kind of see to the left of it, it's shallow and the seaweed problem. We did hear that outside of not just the dredging. We heard that the weeds were a major concern for the boaters. And we've also noted, and I know we've talked about this before with many councillors, the water level is low right now, and it is impacting right now launching. And it is something that we're monitoring. And we have been talking with some of our boat slip owners to see if there's other locations. We do have the ramp on the far side of the marina that we are making some exceptions to work with them to try to bring their boats in on that side as well. Sugarloaf Marina, you can see the large marina and what we're really talking about. And from this picture, again, right now we're really doing our research about dredging that boat ramp. And the question really is, if we do dredge it, do we put it in the pond or do we put it over at the Nickel Beach and expand the parking lot there? So ultimately, the recommendation moving forward, consistent with the same recommendation that Council gave us approval a couple Council meetings ago, was to continue gathering information on the cost estimates as we go out, looking for an RFP program, looking for, is it most cost effective to use the Sugarloaf Marina pond, or is it most cost effective to look at Nickel Beach parking lot to move forward with moving the dredged material? I'll turn it over to Jasmine, our Manager of Communications. She does a great job explaining everything that we've heard from the public, and then we can come back and have a conversation about the recommendation. But just for Council to be aware, the recommendation is to continue with the status quo to which Public Works has already been directed to to come back with cost estimates, so you can consider those options.
Okay, so thank you once again, Mayor Steele and Council, for the opportunity to talk to you again tonight about marina dredging and public boat launch dredging. So this campaign, this engagement campaign took place between February 28th and March 21st. Again, we did an online and paper survey and open houses, 2 open houses. So we have 354 people completing the survey this time, 529 open field comments, but the survey is a little bit longer at 8 minutes, and we see 79% of a full completion rate. So as I mentioned, the open houses were shared with the grain terminal. So we had information about the marina in one half of the room and information about the grain terminal in the other half of the room. 94 attendees in total, and we had several information boards and interactive sessions as part of the open house, and some really great engagement, really great conversations during those those events as well. So as always, I like to start with, to give you an idea of who we heard from. So 66% of the respondents in this survey were from Port Colborne, and 96% were from either Port Colborne or somewhere else in Niagara. And I did want to share that we did send this survey out to slip holders, and so that might be why you see a little bit more of a split between not just Port Colborne residents, but we also see people that are living elsewhere, not just in Port Colborne. And I will show you one of the questions that I'll show you as we go through. We look at only responses from Port Colborne residents. And if there's other questions that council would like to see, just responses from Port Colborne residents, I'm happy to share them with you. But I can tell you that they're almost all in the same direction. So they change by a couple of percent, but if you look at the two graphs beside each other, they're very similar. And so that's why we've just provided one option for you of all the respondents at the same time. So another question we asked to sort of give a sense of who we are hearing from in the survey is, are you now or have you ever been a seasonal slip holder at Sugarloaf Marina? We see 37% of our respondents of the survey currently being slip holders at the marina, and we see 45% of respondents reporting that they have never been a slip holder at the marina. So those two shorter center options are either I've been a slip holder within the last 5 years, but I'm not now, or I've been a slip holder more than 5 years ago. So that gives you a sense of kind of who we are hearing from. And one more question to give you a sense is, have you launched your boat at the public boat ramp at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park in the last 5 years? We see 56% of our respondents have used that in the past 5 years. So when we ask questions about the boat ramp, for example, itself, the boat launch itself, we're asking the people who have used it. So we don't see responses from, if you haven't been there, you didn't get that question, so you don't answer because you wouldn't know. So we have 6 areas to talk about. First, we'll talk about community enjoyment at the marina and the waterfront area. We'll talk about feedback on the proposed dredging project, comments about funding, future development at the Sugarloaf Marina property, expanding services at the marina, and then a couple of other notable comments that we want to share as well. So first, around community enjoyment. This question asked, do you believe Sugarloaf Marina provides value to residents beyond its use for boaters? So that might be something like a scenic waterfront view or walking paths, restaurant, fishing opportunities. And we saw 74% of respondents believing that Sugarloaf Marina does add significant value to the community. This question asked, do you participate in any of the following activities around the marina and public boat launch area? So you can see that we got a number of respondents. People are participating in relaxing and enjoying waterfront views, dining at the marina, enjoying marina events or community events in the area. Can't see what that last one is, but I think it's walking or jogging on the paths. So now feedback on the dredging project, or on the proposed dredging project. So we asked, have you ever experienced any of the following challenges launching your boat at the public boat ramp? So again, only those who've used the boat ramp answered this question. That's okay, Jess. It's okay. Okay, so we see 81% of respondents noting that they've had issues with weeds getting caught in their boat propellers. We see 64% noting that they've had issues with slippery surfaces, and then 51 reporting issues with shallow waters or bottoming out their boat if their boat is a large vessel. This question said, the in-water area near Sugarloaf Marina and the public boat launch is becoming shallower every year due to low lake levels and the accumulation of sediment, silt, and sand. To fix this issue, a dredging project would be required to create more depth in this area. Dredging is the process of removing sediment using specialized equipment, such as excavators equipped with bucket or suction extraction mechanisms. Would you support this project? So we thought it was important to explain what dredging was, not just ask if somebody would support it. So it's a little bit of education on this piece as well. And we see 75% of respondents thinking it's a good idea to move forward with the dredging project in general. This question said the most significant accumulation is at the public boat launch area, causing issues for people launching boats. If these issues continue, how do you think the city should respond? So I realize you can't see all of the options on the left there, but I'll tell you, they say from the top to bottom, go forward with the dredging project, restrict the use of the public boat launch to, for example, smaller vessels, close the public boat launch. And the light color blue there is search for a private partner to support the operation and maintenance of the boat launch. The small orange one says do nothing, and the bottom one says other. So we see 67% of respondents thinking that it's a good idea to move forward with dredging at the public boat launch area. So we asked this question twice, once for public boat launch, once for marina proper. So this is the question around the rest of the marina. So as a reminder, we saw 67% on the public boat launch. Again, we see 67% moving forward with dredging at the rest of the marina on this question. So this question said, if the city goes forward with dredging in the area near the public boat launch, what do you think that the city should do with the dredged material? And we asked respondents to rank their answers. So we said, put them in 1 to 4, so we could kind of see not only what was the top answer, but if everybody ranked them a little differently, we'll kind of weigh it out. So we see 44% of respondents ranking moving the dredged material to the industrial land beside Nickel Beach parking lot as their first option. But you can see there's not a really, there's a winner here, but there's not a really clear winner here. And so that is reflected in the recommendations that we have looking at those two locations of both the Sugarloaf Marina and the lagoon area and the area at Nickel Beach parking lot. So this is the same question, a picture from the open house, where again, we gave little dots and we asked people that were participating in the open house to vote for their favorite options. And the two on the top are the same two that I just mentioned, in the lagoon area on the left and in the Nickel Beach industrial land on the right. So some comments about project funding. This question said, how do you think the city should pay for this project? And you won't be surprised to see 80% of respondents looking to see grants from upper levels of government to fund the dredging project. The second in the yellow there is marina slip holders or boat ramp users should fund the project. And then we also see in the darker blue property taxes from new developments. This question said, currently, the marina operations are fully funded by fees paid by boaters and parking passes at the public boat ramp, known as a self-sustaining entity. Given the significant cost of the dredging is likely to exceed what can be covered by slip holders and launch users, would you support the city using some of the land assets on the marina property to create an income source to help pay for the dredging and future maintenance costs? This time we see 45% of respondents agree with using the land assets of the marina as an income source, and an additional 27% say maybe. So you can get a pretty good direction for this question. So future development at the Sugarloaf property. This question said, if the city was to pursue partnering with some type of developer to build on the marina property, what sort of development would you like to see? So 42% would like to see something like a restaurant or commercial area, 35% would like to see retail or entertainment, and 35% would like to see something like a hotel or an event space or something like that. And again, this question was one where respondents could click as many options as they wished. So that's not one that we would necessarily want to add the answers together. So these are some of the comments that we heard around development at the marina. There were some concerns from respondents on the importance of preserving the marina as a marina. There were concerns around parking and the already limited parking options there if new developments would sort of impact or have an impact on future parking spaces. There were some respondents suggesting that recreation facilities such as pools or pickleball or tennis or basketball courts or more recreational opportunities would be, people would be interested in having those kind of things in that space. And we did see some respondents expressing concerns about losing access to the waterfront area if it were to be sold to a private developer. Again, this is from the open house, the same question. However, in this time, we see that the most common option is that I would not support building on the marina property. So you see a little bit of a different vibe from the open house than you do from the survey itself. So this question said, if the city was to sell the marina and the boat ramp to a private developer or operator, what sort of a development would you like to see in the area? We see 73% of respondents responding with, I do not support selling the marina. So we thought it would be interesting to look at this question to see how just Port Colborne residents are responding, since it's a little bit different view from your perspective, but we still see 71% of the respondents saying that they wouldn't support selling the marina to a private developer. Okay, so on to expanding services at the Sugarloaf Marina. So we asked a couple of questions that weren't necessarily related just to dredging, but also to operations at the marina. This question noted that the marina is not currently a full-service marina, and it asked, do you think that it should expand the services it offers to help bring in additional revenue? And we saw 60% of respondents saying yes. This question asked, if yes, what kind of things would be relevant? And we see answers like winterizing, servicing, shrink wrapping, boat transportation as common responses. And then finally, just a couple of other notable comments. We saw a lot of comments about the situation at the boat ramp, noting that there were sort of some inexperienced users clogging things up, causing issues. A couple of respondents asked for some sort of an attendant situation, so if there was somebody working there to sort of move things along a little bit. We saw some comments, common requests for expanded facilities at the marina, so such as like year-round access to the washrooms or the fish cleaning stations all year round. There were some concerns about waterfront access, like I mentioned already. If the area was to be sold to a private developer, residents were concerned that they might not have access to the area. We did see some comments about the maintenance and calling on respondents calling for sort of a more regular maintenance of the marina and the boat launch to avoid these kind of big issues and have a better sort of plan, a longer-term plan going forward. There were some comments around respondents that were opposed to using property taxes for the marina as well, although fewer of those than I think that I would maybe necessarily expect. And then finally, there were some environmental concerns, particularly around the lagoon area. And so respondents, asking that we ensure that we consider the wildlife and the environmental impacts of the area, especially if we're looking at filling in the lagoon space. And again, the recommendations there on the screen for you. And that's all for me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Jasmine. And again, I'm just going to put this on the floor so you can ask questions and make comments at the same time. So if I can have Councillors Bagu and Bodner move the Chief Administrative Officer Report 2025-93 be received. Council directs staff to continue gathering cost estimates for the disposal of dredge material for the area closest to the public boat launch, and 2 potential disposal sites under the consideration: the lagoon area at Sugarloaf Marina and the industrial land adjacent to the Nickel Beach parking lot. Questions? Councillor Bruno.
Thank you again, Jasmine, for that. You actually reminded me in there that I made an assumption in my last comment. When I talked about the grain elevator and the marina, it wasn't to sell. It was to use the land asset situation. The question I do have, though, about this survey, would it be helpful when staff does its further investigation to come back to council on the industrial site for the deposits and the lagoon? Is there any way we could get any pricing on those two? Because the public response is within 2 or 3 percentage points of each other. I thought maybe the cost might also be something you should weigh in for what we want to do. In other words, what's the cost of putting it in the lagoon? What's the cost of taking it to the Vail Center lands? not the Vail Center,
Nickel
Vail Lagoon at Nickel Beach.
CAO?
Yeah, through the mayor, to the councilor and council, yes. When we do this, our full anticipation is to look at the cost of both options going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Elliott?
Not a question, more of a statement. I think the Director of Public Works said that if we use the lagoon, there's several $100,000 worth of infrastructure work that has to be done.
Sure.
For drainage and whatnot. So that is at the beginning of whatever. And I think if we take a look at it, you're paying there's no distance in driving. So you're paying strictly by the hour, right, to cart the stuff away. So is the cost different? Probably not much, because the drive over to Nickel Beach or at the lagoon really isn't that much of a difference. You're still gonna pay by the hour for the vehicle. So if you're dumping it. But I remember Steve saying that there was significant cost in infrastructure that had to go in to account for putting the sludge in and draining and stuff like that. So it's too bad he's not here tonight, but we can ask him when he comes back. That's all, thanks.
Thank you. Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Next is Town of Grimsby manufacturing of emergency response vehicles in Canada. Moved by Councillor Hoyle, seconded by Councillor Elliott. The council endorsed the correspondence for the Town of Grimsby regarding manufacturing of emergency response vehicles in Canada. Councillor Hoyle, do you want to comment on this? You brought this forward.
Yes, I would like to see council support this, urging the government of Canada and the province in exploring opportunities to incentivize and support domestic manufacturing of emergency response vehicles within Canada. It'll be a plus to have more domestic manufacturing, create jobs, stimulate local economies, and kind of bypass the possible tariff risks and not be so reliant on foreign suppliers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Port Colborne official plan and Niagara official plan update 2025-89, moved by Councillor Bruno, second by Councillor Danch, that Development and Government Relations Department Report 2025-89 be received for information. Councillor Bruno.
Actually had all that sorted out.
You're fine with it then?
I'm fine with it. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had and I'll need other councillors' assistance on this, but I remember when we had the former consultant here, and I think David from planning, and sorry, welcome Eric to Port Colborne. I thought we had discussed having the consultants work with council to kind of go over the official plan and talk about areas that we thought we could see development and some requirements that we would like to see going forward with planning reports. And
staff?
Through the mayor to the councillor. Yeah, thank you for the question. And the work that Dillon Consulting did, which was some of the preliminary engagement work for the official plan, I believe, based on what I can tell, that was reported back to council with a presentation last summer. They went sort of after that and created a full document that details the engagement, that includes the feedback that came from council. We have got that and are including that as an appendice to the request for proposal that we're putting out for the engaging of a consultant to undertake the official plan work. So that will form part of the background that goes into it, but I do expect that once we have a consultant retained, we'd be back in front of this council again, seeking further input on sort of the whole spectrum of all the topics in the official plan.
Councillor?
Yep, thank
All
you
set?
very much. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. Sorry about the misstep there. I did have a question. What I had gotten resolved was another issue. When this first came around, like Councillor Aquilina said, we had Dylan here and they were doing that preliminary consultant. At the same time, there was a gap in having a chief planner. And so the whole idea of coming up with services offered by the Niagara region was brought forward. And I was invited into the meeting when those folks, the chief planner, invited me because I was skeptical about purchasing those services for the region. And I'll be frank, the reason is I've seen from a planning perspective the region's response to the city of Port Colborne on the previous official plan in areas that we wanted designated for rural residential. I've seen on the Committee of Adjustment the, I guess, a shortcoming in their response time and some of the things that were in those responses that made it, I perceive, difficult for someone to get their approval. I really didn't like the presentation in terms of you had to sign on for more than a year with the region and their new plan when you can hire a private planning firm to do that for you, and when they're done the job, they're done. And I also didn't like the fact that, you know, trying to say this delicately, but I don't think they've, I think the old adage, which I don't necessarily believe, adage is that when you're south of 20, you don't get quite the attention that you should get. So I've lived with their responses as a planning department. And now that, and the latest one I had heard, which probably tipped me over the edge of not even wanting to go down that road, which is not usually where I would want to go. I'd like to see all aspects. But I didn't realize that until a developer had approached me that there were some setbacks that the region put in on development that actually exceeded the provincial number. And so when you start getting into wanting to promote development, the last thing you want to do is have two sets of rules. And I'm not so sure on this narrow area that the province got it right. And in looking on the land, it seemed like it got it right. And so I looked forward to the day when they were not involved in this and we can make our own decision. When I read your report, can you clarify this for me? Until we get our OP done, are we allowed to take back some of these decisions that might be a regional bylaw? I'll use that one as an example. In isolation, or do they, so in other words, can we amend that particular clause without you having, as you state in the report, looking at all the options and a more fulsome report? If you have a one-off thing that we don't like the way the region does it and now we have control about it, can we deal with those so that we can help people here development? Or are you or the province saying, well, you've got to have a whole plan on how to do that?
Eric?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bruno, there's a couple of different topics in there.
Yes.
I'm going to go with the official plan one that you were just talking about last. So that regional official plan is now considered a City of Port Colborne official plan. So some of those policies in there that you speak about how they were getting an echo. How those were going further than maybe perhaps what the province had or the city had. That's now within this council's purview to approve amendments on. It's also within this council's purview to potentially repeal sections of that regional official plan if there's a thought that they duplicate. My focus right now has been to really try and push and get this request for proposal out to update the city's official plan so that we can combine those two into one document and we don't have to go back and forth between two plans. I think that's the official plan piece. I do want to also touch on some of the comments you made about the service level agreement and the planning services that were offered by the region. There's a report in right now working its way through approvals for the May 13th council meeting. It speaks into more detail on those services from the region. In a nutshell, I believe we've got the capacity at the city to provide most of that review function that the region used to provide. But I do have a couple of items in there. I think we're looking at doing a bit of an open session report with some closed session addendums, just based on some of the legal contracts that were involved. But perhaps we can continue that in May and discuss that further at the time.
One last thing that sort of, for me, also tipped things over the edge for us to go it alone or hire planning consultants for that is, and this is void of saying that it would just, don't worry about it, the cost is being borne by the developer. But the fact is the cost is being borne by the developer. So there's not a savings to the city or a loss to the city. The developer's playing that, and I believe the developer will want the quickest solution, whether it's right or wrong. And personally, I see the quickest solution usually coming from private planning consultants as opposed to the region. But I don't know their work schedule, their workload. There's lots of factors in that, but that was the other reason why I wanted to try and go it alone. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Ooh, the last page. Staff remarks. Madam Clerk, anything this evening?
Nothing this evening.
Chief?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Public Works? Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a bit of an update. Just bear with me. So on March 31st to April 3rd, I attended the 2025 North American No Dig Conference in Denver alongside Director Steve Shapowski and Senior Project Manager Matt Pilon. This was an excellent event. It was an excellent opportunity to explore latest innovative trenchless technologies and connect with industry leaders. The conference featured over 190 exhibitors showcasing cutting-edge solutions in trenchless technology, with a strong focus on cured-in-place pipe, microtunneling, and AI-driven mapping and condition assessment. During our time there, we also met with a couple of contractors. FurPal was one of them. They do cured-in-place pipe water mains. Notably, they were successful low bidder on our recent water main project. After meeting with them, they expressed enthusiasm about having the opportunity to be the first in Niagara region to start water main lining. We also met with Neil Tech. They were a contractor that focused on culverts and stormwater infrastructure. And since the conference, they reached out and were looking to do a pilot project for no cost to the city. This was gladly accepted. We're currently planning on completing this work. The estimated in-kind value of this initiative was approximately $15,000. Typically, an open cut replacement of the same pipe would have cost up to $30,000. So overall, I just wanted to say that the conference provided valuable insights and created a momentum for several promising partnerships in our trenchless program. One other update, the water main replacement project. I know there was some questions about the reinstatement. We have on Homewood, all of the work, water main was completed, all the connections and services complete. The reinstatement is scheduled for the week of May 5th. The Berkeley portion was also fully completed of the main line. connections. The reinstatement for that portion on Berkeley is the week of April 28th. And last but not least, Davis, the main line is in, but there's still some connection work to be done. But we're hoping to have all the reinstatement completed by the second or third week in May. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Comms,
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
planning,
No comments, thank you.
bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to do a reminder for the public and for staff as well that coming up May 24th, our Clean Community Day is coming again. Rustic Retreat Glamping Dome is our sponsor once again. It will be held at the Public Works Yard at 1 Kalali Street West from 9 a.m. till noon or until the dumpsters are full. So mark your calendars. Again, that's May 24th, Saturday, from 9 a.m. till noon for our Clean Community Day.
Great, thank you. CAO?
And just a quick thank you. Staff's doing a great job, but a special thank you, Adam, our new CFO. Great job tonight, and I think council really enjoyed your brevity versus my long talking. Thank you so much.
Right.
And Jade, Jade is in the audience today backing up Adam. Jade's our new deputy treasurer, took on that role, and very excited for that too.
Thank you, CAO. Anything from the CFO? Nothing to report, thank you. Well, we give you that option. So whenever you're here, we'll call on you. Councillors' remarks. I'll start to my right, Councillor Aquilina.
You remembered Councillor Bogart's comments from last week. I have nothing, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beauregard.
Through you, I just want to say thank you to Public Works Joe for providing that explanation of what you did when you guys were away. And I think that's good practice from staff to bring back what they've learned from these conferences, just like council does. So I think that's helpful. Niagara Transit, we're going through a governance review. So we're in the process of that, and I'll be attending some meetings soon regarding that. So it's going to be eventually turning into my understanding is that the board or commission will be private citizens or residents in the future. So this is just a transition period. That's my understanding anyways. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bagu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a quick question, I guess, to Joe. Corner of Sugarloaf Street and West Street, the new piping we put in there before they started digging up streets for the hydro. The pipes are still sticking out of the ground. I'm just wondering, when is that going to be completed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Probably within the next week. So those pipes sticking out, they install the main and they have to pressure test it and then do some chlorination. And then once that's completed, they'll connect it. So that should happen anytime.
Okay, thanks, because just I haven't seen anybody working over there, that's all. People turning left on Sugarloaf to West Street, you actually have to drive on the sidewalk to make the left-hand turn. So just for safety sakes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bruno?
Just a thank you to Mr. Bowles this week, having received the updated schedule of where we're at and where we're going. I don't know if you can comment on whether you're going to make our original goal of cleaning all the backlog up by July 1st, but pretty refreshing to see the progress. We've had a lot more meetings, but more importantly, to be looking forward to being looking forward as opposed to playing catch up on everything.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott?
Just a quick question to Joe. Any idea when you're talking reinstatement of Clarence Street from King to West is going to be completed with sidewalks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're planning on probably the first or second week of June. We do have some work on the water main in that section as well. So once that's completed, we are scheduling to have that redone by Rankin probably early June. It'll probably take a few weeks to get that done as well, so probably by the end of June, you'll be finished.
Okay, perfect. And just, I'll say congrats to Adam for your presentation. I did notice, I was going to make comment that the sun was actually still up when you were finished. You got to take your shots when you get them. So I mean, so that it was really nice to be finished in the daylight for that presentation. So we all appreciate that.
Councillor Danch?
Yeah, just a question. When is the marina officially open? Because there's 4 boats in there already. I mean, the hydro's not on yet. I just wondered, like, I know we have dredging problems, but.
Yeah, through the mayor, we're starting to bring in boats right now. I don't have the answer for the hydro. I was told the other day that we were starting to move boats in. So the official opening I thought was going to be within the next couple of days. But I'll get back to you on the hydro because I didn't realize they hadn't turned the hydro on the run yet.
And I noticed we have our docks in the canal already, so that's a positive thing for the spring. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoyle?
Through the mayor, thanks for staff taking care of my large list this week. So all staff got back to me, so we're good there. Just a reminder for businesses and others, the Port Colborne Fleet Chamber of Commerce starting to populate their calendar for events, such as in the next week, Coffee Club, and I see the Chamber Classic Golf is up, but there's also, the date should be coming out for the, so Laughing Ribs or Tickling Ribs, that's what it's called. So just go to that website and you'll see what's all going on. Thanks.
Formerly Lobsters and Laughs. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, Sherkston Community Center had their Easter egg hunt on Saturday. I took a drive out to see what was going on. They had 130 youth registered for the Easter egg hunt. It was packed. It was really good to see. And the day wasn't a nice, bright, sunny day, but it was really great to see. So just another example of why we need those community centers out in the rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next is notices of motion. Any notices of motion? Seeing none. Bylaws. Can I have Councillors Aquilina and Hoyle move that the following bylaws be passed and enacted as presented, 19.1 through to 19.3. Questions? All in favor? That's carried. We are now adjourned.